Hello everyone, and welcome to a special live episode of the TFTuesday Podcast, coming to you live from Furnal Equinox 2025. My name is Zil. I am a snow leopard turned cheetah today because, of course, and we're really happy to be here, especially because I have to start off with this shout out. I missed the deadline for panel submissions, and I just emailed the panel folks and I was like, please, I am stupid and you are wonderful. Can you let me submit? And they said, okay. So a big thank you to Furnal for letting us have this. Very much appreciated. It's really good to be here again after doing this last year. It was a really wild experience to get to do this for the first time with Libra Live, and so I'm very excited to be doing that here again today. And I am joined by my illustrious co-host, k-libra. How are you doing, k-libra?
Glad to be back in a room full of people who are willing to listen to me for a little while, because I can swear that some people just don't really want to tell me anything other than why I bothered them. But that's okay, because now you can tell me to my face, hi everybody.
Yeah. For the next 90 minutes, you will get to see us talk, and also then there will be a period in which you can talk shit at us. So, if you have any grievances or issues, you will get your time. You will get your due time. But yeah, it's good to be here with you again and doing this live. And I think we have a good show lined up for people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to talk about all this stuff. I think we're going to be getting some people to think about some things and maybe just wince at the things that I complain about. I don't know. I think that as long as you're feeling something, you're thinking, and that's good. And I don't know. Some people even started off being kind of miffed about things, and then they turned out to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's okay. But me too. That's how I feel better about myself when I'm getting along with things and expanding my mind and everything like that. Expand your wallets and fund our Patreon a little bit too.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Give money, please.
Give money, please. But don't worry. I'm not ignorant of what's been going on, because oh my God.
Yeah.
Still, if you can, just a little bit, even for 1 month, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to do.
Yeah.
Keep this going.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that we can even be here and that we even feel motivated to be here. It would be nice if I could do this for free. God, please change the world. Anyway, we're not about changing the world right now. We're about changing a bunch of other things, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Causing some discussions, I think.
Okay, discuss with me.
Yeah, I will discuss with you, as a matter of fact. I will discuss plenty. And in particular, I want to talk a little bit about TF content that's made by people who are potentially not interested in TF in the way that we are, because I think transformation crops up in a lot of different types of media and such. It's a trope as old as time, but sometimes it doesn't always feel like it's being handled from a lens of someone who's really steeped in the tropes of transformation, and so I always find it interesting when that content comes out. So I guess maybe to level set, do you have any opinions on people who are, not TF people who are making TF content, and how do you generally tell when that's the case?
I think you can tell when they're not spelling out certain things that get spelled out consistently. I think that a lot of people in the fandom, for instance, will do the thing where they will be showing what's happening while having the character say that the thing is happening to them that you're already seeing. They'll have their hand up that's changing and say, my hands are changing. That's something that bothers me that a lot of people do. A lot of artists do that too. And maybe they like hearing it, but I think it's redundant and it gets under my skin a lot. But I do appreciate seeing the people that aren't steeped in it, because they're not going to repeat the same things. They're also going to, again, give you little ideas or little approaches that you never considered, or just applying certain changes in an order that you may not have considered. I think that's what I really like about people who aren't really in it. They are going to bring something that will make you feel like, oh, this should be everywhere. Mm-hmm. But because I think that the people in this circle of stuff really just kind of want to keep exploring the things that they like, you're not really going to get that chance to be sparked for something new. And maybe you are having conversations with friends with really fun ideas that you wish would be out there, maybe you don't draw, or maybe you do and you're not really known, or something like that. And that doesn't really get out there. So I really like it when people who are in media or making some kind of thing or whatever, that they're making this stuff. It refreshes so many things, but sometimes also they might just do the thing you like the way you like it because it kind of started there. You never really know like who's into what when they're making it, but sometimes they hit the mark just for you, and that doesn't mean that they're into it the same way you are. It's a fun thing. I also feel like if you're looking for media that's made with you in mind, you're going to feel like there's never enough. And that's kind of like shortchanging yourself and just like the whole fantasy even, or even just like the thought experiments.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting when you get these kind of new concepts and new ideas. And honestly, one of the things that kind of got me on this sort of topic in the first place was I read a book recently called Shark Heart, which is a book by Emily Haybeck. And it was really interesting because it was using transformation very much as an analogy for kind of grappling with terminal illness. The idea of the book was basically that every so often, just out of the blue, people will discover they are turning into X animal, and that is just what is going to happen, and it's going to happen over a period of time or whatever, and they have to kind of grapple with the changes and such, and then eventually they just go off into the wild, and they just do their own thing. But it was really interesting reading the book because the way in which a lot of the changes were described, like things that were focused on, were not things that I would generally see people who are steeped in TF media focused on.
Yes.
So for example, and I'm going to try not to spoil anything, but like one of the first kinds of changes that the person who's going through the shark changes experiences is like the cartilage of their nose is changing. And I thought that was so interesting. I was like, I would never think of that being something that stands out in like a shark transformation per se. Like usually I'd be like, oh, maybe it's like the teeth first or like some other sort of stuff. So like the focus on certain different types of elements changing, or like the character having to use like petroleum jelly on their like feet because they kept drying out. Like they were all, it was really interesting to see that someone had clearly done this sort of like in-depth research on the animal, but it didn't really feel like it was someone who was like, oh, this is like hot for me or something.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I think somebody might see that line and think, oh yeah, that is kind of hot to think about.
It is kind of hot, but
but you're not really going to think about it because it's like a nuance that isn't like terribly. I mean, like you're not thinking about your nose too much in that respect, and that gradual a thing. Maybe if you're into the long-term stuff, but if you're into the long-term stuff, like I think people kind of want to see something that is really noticeable. Mm-hmm. The cartilage changing is literally under the skin and you can't notice it, and it's really just like a personal thing. And if you're looking at a piece of art, and often you are, that you're not going to be able to appreciate that. And maybe people are writing good shit, but you're not reading it, because honestly there's a deluge of it. There really is, because again, there's people who are writing because they feel they can't draw. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I'll say that forever.
But I also think there's something to be said about, I think a lot of folks who do a lot of really good writing, the barrier of entry to actually get people interested is much higher, because with an art piece, you look at it.
Yes,
with a reading piece, it's like, I need to set aside time to actually go through and properly chew on everything that's in here,
Sometimes it doesn't even have to be that way. You can read something more than once, or skim it, or read it in parts. I think that's part of the looming commitment of reading, is feeling like you're going to have to sit there for hours to appreciate it. It's not really true. And it would be good if a lot of us just allowed ourselves to read things in pieces, especially if we want to, It's better that way. And so just like getting back to the story itself, like, yes, it is cool to see somebody who looks at transformation as a metaphor or a simile, and seeing like, see, this is how it feels to see someone go through this experience, and you get to see it very obviously. Let me see how it goes. It's something like one of the best ways that transformation actually works in a story as like a moral or something like that, is because you can't ignore what happens at all. And neither can the person who has undergone like said punishment or circumstance or anything like that. And because also, yes, it's a very horny space, and I kind of wish I could say otherwise sometimes. It'd be great if it were like half and half, but when people also seem to want a lot of substance, And the substance really comes down into like the gratification of what people are making, which again is fine, but there's like more that can be done. There's like more dimensions of stuff that can be approached. That is why I like it when people who aren't in this circle of stuff make it. Yeah. You're going to want to say, hey, what if you use this to express this idea? Terminal illness, I think that's a really good one. And I think it kind of goes over people's heads a lot because there's a lot of like horror movies and stuff where slowly you're like seeing somebody change. You're like, ooh, that's very hot. But, you know, zoom out from your own interest for a little bit, and you'll start to realize, oh man, this is actually pretty sad, or this is actually pretty fucked up, you know? There's lots of games and movies that do that. And I know people like to get caught up in the whole like, yeah, I wish that were me. But like really pay attention to the story and what they're trying to do, and it's a really cool way. So like it's like also when people say, oh, now I am like a bird and now I am free. Real basic shit, but like what does that mean for the person? How do they feel? How are they free? Yeah. Depending on who's writing it, you might get a whole different perspective on why becoming a bird even matters to somebody.
Yeah. Also, speaking of the substance and horror, the substance was robbed at the Oscars, and I will never forgive them. Just need to make sure that's put on the record.
You really love the substance.
I really do love the substance.
I didn't know how much you actually loved it until like recently when you just, like, I don't know, you're really invested in like everybody who gets the stuff that they're supposed to. And
yeah, it's really good. I want to see it in more context, but you know, I appreciate that it was made very, very deeply because in a world where there is a lot less latitude given to filmmakers to try something that is against the grain or a bit more out there, it was really refreshing to see that this one actually came to fruition because it almost didn't. I'm not going to get into like how the substance came to be, but it was a bit of a leap in terms of how it actually got made in the first place, and I'm very thankful that they were allowed to.
Yeah, just to like give a little bit more to the substance, it's actually really cool because we do count it as like a piece of transformation media, but it kind of isn't, and it kind of is. It's a really blurry scenario where when you're looking at it, you're thinking, oh yes, there are changes happening, but it's also a separation, but it's also, like you really can't tell where the lines begin and end on what is going on with the main character. And that makes it a really interesting thought experiment, especially if you like doing things like replacing identities or altering perceptions, all kinds of things like that. Because without a spoiler, it's kind of like without saying like anything spoilers, like one of the things that the character is told, what was it? It was something like there is no
you or her. There is you are one. Remember, you are one.
Yes, you are one. Yeah. Remember that you are one. And it's just like, how's that supposed to work? What does that mean? And then watching all of that break down is very interesting.
But I wouldn't say that one fits into this category quite, because there are so many like typical TF tropes that come up in that movie. I'm like, oh, I know what you are. I know what you are, and that's good. I'm glad. But I would say, like, going back to like, you know, content that's made by non-TF creators, like, would you say there are any, in a bit of an oxymoron, do you think there's any common things that non-TF people will do when it comes to making TF content?
I think they'll keep it to the drama. It's about the drama, it's about the stakes, it's about what you can do to rise to the occasion, that kind of thing. There's that, and there's horror. I guess I don't really want to talk about horror too much because it's always something like a dangerous creature, a loss of the self, things like that. And those can all be very interesting. But because it came up in conversation recently, Steven Universe uses transformation a ton.
Yes, it does.
And it really has a lot to do with adapting and, you know, who's the real you and what does identity mean and all that kind of stuff. Because remember, like all the gem characters, they're hard-like constructs.
Yes.
They choose to look the way they do and appear the way they do. It's all a choice. So, you know, but they can be whatever they want. Yeah. And then they're like fuse, and even those fusions can go out of control. And then there's like so many little things, but really it's like an exploration of identity in a lot of creative ways. And I also see that's what's fun about it. What if you have the ability to like really express yourself any way you can? What does it say about the form that you choose? I even think about I think it was Morgan. Is her name Morgan in Dragon Age Origins?
Yes, Morgan.
Yeah. So her whole gimmick, for those who don't know, is that she is a shapeshifter. But then she gets asked a question by you, the player, something like, you know, do you think that you're still human? Then she says something akin to like, I have no doubt that I am human. It's just that, I go through these things and I do what I do, and it's I don't know, it was something like, do you remember exactly what she said?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was very much like basically she appears however it is that she feels in that moment and what have you. Like maybe there's like a form of utility for a certain form, or maybe it's just this is how she wants to express herself at that given point, which is very gender of her, honestly. So I mean,
one day you're going to have to apply some context to that shit. I know what people say when they say it, but I don't know if they know what they mean when they say it.
I know what I'm saying.
But I'm going to give you a pass. Don't worry about that.
I think it's very gentle.
There's Morrigan, and then there was also, oh man, now I'm forgetting the other one. There's just a number of characters who just kind of do that sort of stuff, and it makes me think of like, oh yeah, identity and how they explore that sort of thing.
So to you, you'd say almost like a lot of the non-TF creators who use TF are focused on like drama and identity, you'd say?
Yeah, like, okay, there's like Breath of Fire. I like Breath of Fire, even though I never really finished any of the games. I played like a chunk of, I think, 4, and I'm interested in Dragon Quarter, but it really has to do with the hero that can turn into a dragon and stuff like that. And, that's a very, like, shonen sort of thing, too. You become the dragon and win the fight at a crucial moment, and there's just fun to be had in that. Why not?
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be complicated, but then there's Dragon Quarter, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, which I'm going to play someday somehow. Your hero can do the same thing of turning into a dragon, but the thing that people didn't like is that there's a meter to manage where if you turn into a dragon too often for too long, you just game over and you lose your humanity, and so you can't go on with the story. You stay a dragon and people are like, oh, fun, but it's just like, oh, the consequences are whatever circumstance you would have made it through or helped with, it's over because you don't have your aim anymore. And I'm like, damn, that's something cool to explore, because it was also one of the fun things about playing, which one was it? Did we play To Change? It was the one where, like, I was pretty much guts. And
oh, yeah, that was To Change, the live playthrough To Change,
it was fun for me to try to hold off. I'm like, how am I going to skirt this shit where people are going to sabotage me and my body? This is going to be fun. And it was fun to, like, get through it and use it and all that kind of stuff.
I was Herlock Sholmes.
Yeah, you were.
The greatest detective ever. Play Ace Attorney, y'all. Trust me, you'll appreciate it.
It's a shockingly well-written game.
It is a really well-written game.
It also has transformation in a certain way.
It does have transformation.
That's really, really weird, and I didn't expect. But also is really weirdly heartfelt and kind of warm, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm not supposed to feel things at this really stupid bullshit.
Yeah, that's how it would be. I did want to mention one other thing I've seen sometimes that non-TF creators will do as like kind of a trope. And this is more of like kind of a bemusing thing to me, but like they will portray a really cool thing as horrific, not horrific in the sense of like actual like body horror, but like horrific is like, oh, this sucks so much, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. And like, listen, to be clear, obviously, I think there's a lot of transformations that we, even as people, would be like, I don't like this is not me. But like, the one I think about a lot is in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis. A character gets turned into a dragon, and the whole time he's just like, this is awful, I hate this. And I'm like, you're a fucking dragon, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, what are we doing here? Are you kidding me? And that was a punishment. That was a punishment transformation. I was like, you made him a full dragon. He's still got his whole mind. He can do whatever he wants. And you're like, this is bad. I'm like, the fuck?
But I read a story like that too, and they laid out exactly why it would be bad for him. It was again one of those little stories where you're screwing around where you're not supposed to, and accidentally turns himself to a dragon. I think it was like an elf or a dwarf, something like that. It was a Dragonlance book, and it was a short stories book, and the whole thing had to do with dragons, because dragons in that universe are really interesting. So
hot.
So like, and yes, they do shapeshift. So
hot.
So, but like one of them changes and it's just like panics, flying, doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be stuck like this for the rest of my life. Oh my god, do I have to eat like real like live things?
Hot.
I don't want to do that. Oh my god, things are gonna like the people are gonna want to kill me because I'm a threat, and all this other shit, and all the like consequences of like I can't exist in this universe like this because I don't know how to. And like certain things are still like considered gross. There's no period of like there's no ease of entry for it.
Yeah.
just because you have the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, of course, there's just like, what about my friends? What about this? What about all the... Yeah, like, there's a lot to lose.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. That's not how C.S. Lewis portrayed it because he's an idiot, so, you know.
That's why we read different things and we talk about
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
There's a good way to do this.
Yeah.
You can read Berserk and see how becoming a monster can have a lot of nuance, because I also think about the apostles and their sacrifices and what that means.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just going to nod as if I do.
Well, how about I put it to you this way? When you're given this like really weird artifact in Berserk called a Bailet, it is supposed to activate in the worst moment of your life, and then you are approached by these otherworldly beings. And the otherworldly beings give you this opportunity to make a great sacrifice. And if you do that, they will give you a body that you feel you deserve. And you'd be shocked to know that every like monster who has become like that is the way they want to be. And boy, are there many like really horrific forms, but that is how they see themselves and that's how they want to be. And then it makes you wonder like, oh man, all these people are evil and they did evil things, until you realize that there's a little more going on, and it's even more tragic, and in a way they're all still victims. Because it can all be taken away. Read Berserk. It's really fucking good.
Well, let me pose another question then, because just getting back to the transformations made by non-TF creators, is there any?
One.
That was one. No, it was one. No, I'm saying like, are there any that you have seen that you wish hadn't been made?
I don't really think so. Well, okay, there's the problem with the really hokey stuff, with like really crappy effects, and you know, I know people complain about fakeness and CG and shit like that, but there is the sincerity of they're doing their best with anything they got. And there are the people who I'm just like, man, did you realize that even in this movie this looks really bad, and I'm just kind of wondering if you shoehorned it in because it had to be that way. I don't remember which movie it is, but there's a werewolf transformation where the camera's like panning around, and I swear to fucking God, the character looks like the higher res CG cutscenes for PS2, and it's like the camera's panning around and around and around and around them, and I'm like, oh, it's cool, you get to see them from every angle changing and stuff, but it looks so bad. And also, even the final form actually doesn't line up at all with what was
being shown, in the transformation.
It was completely wrong. So I'm just thinking to myself, if you're gonna do that, please at least just like let your endpoint make sense, especially if you're gonna show it off from beginning to end. And then there was like another one in a short film where it was really just strongly implied, used a bit of shadows, the light swinging, and sometimes you catch a glimpse of like the back flexing, but it looks like practical effects and stuff like that. You don't really see much of anything, but what you do get to see just fills in so nicely. And yeah, so I think that if you have a vision, then they can carry it through. But if you think that, oh, this is just going to look cool, then I think that's pretty regrettable. Yeah. I think you can sort of tell when somebody just thinks something will look cool and they just add it. Yeah, that's where like people don't understand that if you're going to go through the trouble of actually showing somebody change from one form to another, you got to make that shit count. And the people that aren't into it don't get it, but some people don't get it at all for like the purpose of just like art. As pretentious as that sounds, it's not pretentious.
No, it's a real thing to say. So
yeah,
I definitely have an answer for this. It's called Color Out of Space. I really wish I hadn't seen that movie. I really wish I hadn't seen that movie.
That's because they did it well.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
No?
No.
See?
It ruined Merge TF for me forever. I can't.
Wow, man. There's like a horrible way to like do a bunch of other things, but now suddenly Merge TF is ruined for that. Everybody has done things in such a really fucked up way that you could find in spades, and you're like, Color Out of Space ruined this for me.
Listen, that one made me actually jump on the couch and clutch my friend Tiger Twins next to me because I was horrified. So it did its job. Listen, 10 out of 10 on the horror aspect, but I wish I hadn't seen it. I really wish I hadn't seen it.
Temper yourself.
Mother and child backwards together? No, absolutely the fuck not.
Read Berserk.
If you're telling me that's in Berserk, that's not motivating me to read it.
I am motivating you to become stronger.
You're not motivating shit on that front. That makes me not want to read it.
Don't worry, I'll go and look at all the funny little merge TFs that you can't handle right now. Come on.
No,
it's fun.
I wish
it's
that one
such a
hadn't
good
been made.
movie. Everything felt like shit, and I'm just like, man, you know why? It's because I give a fuck. And then when I saw the consequences of all the stuff from space, I'm just like, show me more. What else could happen? I'm so interested. This is me. Like, what was it? I was like 9 or 10 watching The Fly, and the fingernails are falling out, and he's at the mirror.
Yeah, but that's hot.
See, go fuck yourself.
I'm right, and I will say it. That's hot.
Saying you're right don't mean shit.
It does, actually.
Yeah, at least you believe it. Still doesn't make you any less fucking crazy, though.
I'll be crazy and right. And what about that?
You can be crazy.
I can be crazy and right.
You can be crazy. This guy's crazy.
And right. Well, ask the audience.
You're to the left
Is
of me.
losing your fingernails in a transformation hot?
No.
Okay, I'm getting some iffies. Okay, there's a yes. I got a yes. So
Only if they're turning into claws.
that's what I would say.
Oh, see,
yes.
now you're doing like the caveat, but this guy's fingernails are just falling out in front of the mirror. He's just like plucking them out, okay? Now you're gonna add a little circumstance. What?
How do you feel about District 9 then?
I love District 9. District 9 is one of my favorite transformations.
See? And but you're like, oh man, this horrific scenario is not what I want to see.
Yes.
So I'm now disinterested from all of it.
In that specific way,
That's
yes.
how bigots are made, my friend.
Oh my god.
Is it just the incest in it that bothers you?
Sorry?
Is it just the incest concept that bothers you?
Incest.
Yeah, well,
Mother and
because it is mother and kid like this. I mean, it's not technically incest, but like, I do think that there is a level. No, hold on. There is a level to that specific dynamic being part of the merge TF that does make me uncomfortable.
Why are
so-
you? Why is that being applied at all?
Because it's. What do you mean? Why is it being applied?
Why
That's
are
the
you
context of the transformation.
Incest?
It's not incest. It's the fact that it's like a mother and a kid being merged together.
You're the one applying the like someone else. Like why? Why?
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yes, so I don't like it.
So sex is being applied to
no,
the
it's
equation.
not sex. Oh my god.
How else is it incest?
I didn't say
you know.
incest.
Shut the fuck up.
I
Let's
didn't
move
say
on.
that.
Let's
Okay.
move on. Fuck.
There will be opportunity to yell at us in the coming minutes. So I did want to talk about another item, which I think has come up in the podcast a few times, but it was also suggested on our Patreon, and I was like, yeah, we can talk about it more. I think there's a common feeling amongst a lot of people within the fandom that they might either be a lurker or they might be an outsider compared to more active members in the community. Or people who get a lot of attention in massive quotations and such. And so I know this is something you've kind of like talked about before, but what do you think is at the core of this feeling? Like, are we just recreating high school or college dynamics from a social perspective, or is there something deeper at play?
When it comes to like the stuff that
Like
people
feeling
make
like an
wrong.
outsider or like,
Okay, so I don't know. I'm just gonna have to dig a little bit. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have to help me.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
What I want to say about
That's
this.
what I'm here for.
One of the things
I
that-
dig holes. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. I also dig myself into holes. Anyways, go ahead.
What the fuck is wrong with you today? I had felt like a big outsider for a really long time because I was noticing that with TF, it is a matter of a lot of people who want the change so badly. They want it to be them. There's so many people that want whatever's happening to be them. I am not like that. Even with the appeal of it happening to me, having grown over time, and it's just like, oh yes, I would want to explore that. It's like such a deep yearning for a lot of people for so many reasons that I cannot relate to, and the conversations will ultimately boil down to that sort of thing. Like, oh yeah, haven't you ever wanted this and that? And I'm just sitting there like, I mean, I guess I don't know. So it made me feel like at a certain point, like I don't fucking belong here. Because people are coming to me thinking maybe I want it too, but whenever I tell them that I don't, they're like, yeah, it's whatever for me. It seems fun. I also just end up feeling like, yeah, what do I have in common? How can I connect with people about this sort of thing that I'm not on their level with? So then you realize, oh yeah, I can do this thing for you, but I can't connect with you on that level. So why am I here? What am I doing here? And also like ends up feeling like rejection, because there have been so many people who, when I tell them, yeah, it's not really where I'm at for it, or what I'm looking for, or what I'm even trying to make or express, I just end up feeling like, oh, well, you only fucking wanted to talk to me because you thought it was exactly like you. Nobody's exactly like anybody. What the fuck? So that feels bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair point to make, because I think, especially with, like you were kind of describing, like with people where it's like a really core part of who they are, if you're not on that level, it can feel really alienating if someone comes at you specifically anticipating that you're going to come at it from the same way, and then when you're like, well, that's not really how it is for me, then there's like all of a sudden this like distance that is given of like, oh, well, it's not quite what I thought it was, so now I'm kind of like disheartened, and it's like, man, I'm just here existing.
Yeah, and it sucks also because I try to ask questions about people like, what's in it for you? And oh god, are some of you just kind of used to people trauma dumping at you? Because I have had a number of instances where I've asked people, why do you like this thing so much? And within 5 minutes, I know something about them that I shouldn't, that only their therapist should and their loved ones should know.
Half the audience was nodding their heads, by the way. So.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking to myself how, like, man, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But I would like to be, because I've also like managed to make friends and connections based on just this stuff in a way that means more to me, which is also why I've been able to even just expand my tastes and likes and all this stuff in the first place, and just grow comfortable with certain things that I didn't quite understand about myself. So I guess it's a little bit like a high school dynamic even more now, because with things like Discord servers, and anybody can make one, you find out things, and those things sometimes make it to me. I just want everybody to know that I find out things about everybody, and I shouldn't know most of the things that I do about people. Why? That's like the high school clique shit. I don't even exist in the same building as everybody every other day, but somehow it happens. And then that's where like the whole high school clique type thing ends up coming into.
Yeah.
Aren't you shocked at the amount of shit I know about a bunch of people?
Yes.
Especially ones that you never heard of, and some that you have.
Yes.
Like, how do you know this? Well, because they told me.
Yeah.
Fuck me, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's also an element of to interrogate a little bit, because I obviously don't relate quite in the same way to the topic, but I think there's also an element of like a number of folks when they come into this kind of fandom community, whatever word you'd like to use for it, when they find some sort of kinship, I think people really want to like almost speed run the familiarity process with other folks, because it's like, oh, I found somewhere where I feel like I can be at least somewhat comfortable. It's not even necessarily like fully comfortable, but like somewhat comfortable. And so, okay, I'm going to try and like get through all the stuff that is like related to me, so that it's out there, so that if it's going to go badly, then it goes badly quickly, and then I can just move on. Or if it goes well, then I can immediately be like, okay, I'm good now. I think that's a normal human response to like, especially if you feel like you haven't had community for a very long time. But the problem is that's not generally how social systems are set up with people. Like, yes, you might be able to get away with that in certain contexts, but for most people, the speed running becomes the trauma dumping almost. And I think that there's like that element of trying to struggle to find a way in which to connect with other people that then can kind of blow back and make you feel more like an outsider.
Well, that's because it ends up feeling transactional when that happens,
yes,
too.
Yes,
you just want to burn through all the shit as quickly as possible about you and see, like, is this worth it? Like, holy shit, man, did you want to talk to somebody? I don't need to make best friends with everybody that I meet. I just want to be able to have more communication that just ends up being like, that was nice. I appreciated that today. That's really all I would like more of. It's been hard to get, but I don't know. It's been getting a little better with time.
Yeah. See, I have the other problem in that I want everyone desperately to like me, so that becomes its own problem. But
I mean, you didn't have to try with me, but you should stop doing that. Everybody wants to be desperately liked. Remember, the desperate part is actually not good.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
It's not productive.
Yeah. But I think like that is also something that I think feeds into some of these dynamics, because especially if you're like, I just want people to like me or like be in the right spot, then that may lead you to do behaviors that are actually in the long term not actually helpful for anyone.
I want to be liked too. I really do. You know, I do this show and people are paying attention to me. I want people to pay attention to me. I want to be somebody that matters. I really do.
Yeah.
It's not a special thing. The only thing is I had to learn to come to terms with a bunch of things about myself, which is very vague, but also I guess it also just kind of shows me that I'm not really, this is why I keep trying. I'm not very different from anybody here and anybody in most places. I just had different expectations for people a lot of the time, because what I try to do is I greet everybody that I possibly can. You know, like they're perfectly more intelligent than me. Anything I say to them, they're going to understand. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when people don't want to work with that or seem to not be able to like reciprocate or something like that, it can feel kind of bad.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes they get hostile, which is why sometimes I bring something up and they'll be like really defensive and shit like that. But you know, I feel the way I do. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of stories too where I'll say, man, I think this fucking sucks, and they're just like, excuse me, who do you think you are? And it's like, I'm telling you it sucks. I'm telling you, you fucking suck. Are we gonna find that out now? It's like that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it also makes me think, like, do sometimes people feel like outsiders because they just don't know how to like healthily engage in conversation? Is that something that you think plays into it at all, or is it more on everyone?
I guess so, because I was also starting to think that with all the people who had the yearning and they brought that yearning to me, I'm thinking like, man, how do you want me to talk to you? What are you expecting me to say to you that makes me suddenly more interesting? Mm-hmm. Oh, they come and just like, I really love your art. Oh, that was so good. And I'm just like, yeah, thanks, man. That's really good because this and that. And I'm like, what did you want me to do? Did you want me to start like role playing with you? Like, what the fuck, man? And it happens sometimes.
It happens so much.
Oh my God.
It happens so much.
It's really bad. But and I know some like desperate. Well, where did these standards get set? Anybody have an idea on that shit? God.
Oh, it might have something to do with parasocial relationships with artists. A lot of people, it's a one-way relationship.
Yeah.
You don't know them; they think they know you.
Yeah.
And so it just gets very weird.
Yeah, for the microphone for those listening at home, was mentioning about parasocial relationships with artists and forming that one-way connection. I think that's a good point, actually.
It's a pretty good point. I remember that there was a client, and I'm always going to remember this because I don't fucking get. I was referred to as mysterious. I made a few commissions. I've done them on stream sometimes. I talk to people on stream chat, and I was referred to as mysterious. Why? Why? What do people expect me to say? This is the kind of shit that made me feel that I don't belong here. What am I doing here? What do you people want from me?
They didn't even see you in your cloak. Why would they say you're mysterious? Like, what is this?
No, the people who like the cloak ask me questions.
I know, because it's great. But that's the only like thing I could like tangentially be like, oh, I have a cloak. Maybe that makes you mysterious. But like, the cloak's fucking dope, so I don't know why anyone would say that.
Yeah, but then I start talking to them and we learn stuff about each other. Shit.
Yeah. You learned about Portuguese history the other day because of the cloak.
And Viking history as a result.
So there you go.
Yeah, it was just a bus ride one night. The guy was like, oh, the cloak, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, so I was a biker and I'd used the Viking gimmick and I had a huge beard and I had a friend from Norway and he put the runes on my thing. Did you know that the Portuguese learned to navigate the seas with the Nords with the blah, blah, blah? And I'm just like, holy shit. That was my whole ride home. That was awesome. That's another reason that I want to shift it back to the whole like outsiders of like TF and stuff like that, and people who make the media who are like not interested. You know, if you pick the right ones, even some of the like the sexually charged ones, as long as you let them know like what this is and give them a little bit of context, you don't go full in like this is what I do to myself and with other people.
Oh, God.
They can actually be like, whoa. That actually kind of makes me think. It can happen.
Yeah.
You pick your battles, but you'd be fucking surprised. It's kind of cool.
The bar is also occasionally in hell, but you know, we make do.
What do you mean? Like,
well, with like engaging with like someone who's like, yes, this is exactly how it made me feel.
It's all about the situation. Damn, I got away with doing that shit in the office. It was fun.
Oh, like making the art, yeah.
Yeah, making the art that people could see. titties out and everything like that, and they're just like, what is that? And I'm just like, it's like monsters and stuff like that, and they're just looking at it like, that's really cool that you can make that. That was their baseline response.
I don't think I could get away with that.
And then after that, the only other thing was just like, just remember to put it away before so and so shows up. I'm like, yeah. No, not in your environment, though.
No, absolutely not. That would not go.
But if I walk in with the cloak, maybe they'll be open to suggestion.
Maybe. I guess then the one other thing I want to kind of touch on in here is I think that for a lot of folks who do feel potentially like outsiders, there's always a question of like, how do I navigate my way out of this? And obviously there is no one answer, because if we knew the answer, then like, fuck, we'd be selling it like fucking hotcakes. But when folks like often, I think we all kind of start out as like lurkers to some degree, because like, we just discover something, we're starting to navigate it, etc. Do you think that there is any way for, quote unquote lurkers to feel more accepted in the community without necessarily just going directly into creating like art, to be it like writing or drawn art or anything like that?
You're just making sure I understand. You're asking about making your way out. You mean like out of the lurker situation?
Out of like the lurker feeling, basically.
How do I put this? Yeah, okay. You don't need to make anything, but if you want to talk to people, make sure you have something to say. There are people in this room that I have met or have been lucky enough to get to know or like spend some time with that I otherwise would want to talk to. But the reason that I don't is because I don't feel like I have anything like really to say. Not worth saying, just something to say, something in particular, something maybe a little bit beyond like I like your art. But like, say, if it is an artist, I like their art, and it's just like, what I really like is so-and-so about that. And if they reciprocate and kind of like give you a little bit of insight into that, that's good. That's a start. That's for you, like, interacting with people in the community, the makers. The makers aren't, are outnumbered by the viewers and the fans and everything, but, that is like the start to me. I have been able to have like friendships and even just like really nice acquaintances with certain people who actually pay attention and then actually ask questions, or they just, I don't know, if you're engaged with what they make, feel free to dig into it a little bit with them. If you do decide to make something, how do you want to show it? Do you just want to post it online? Do you feel like it's not really something that you want to expose yourself to? You can share it in like smaller servers or your own. You never know, like, also, like, if you just ask somebody to do something, or like, oh, what do you think of this? Or can I do that? That also can start little things. But you don't necessarily have to contribute. Nobody owes anybody anything. Nobody stops being a lurker because, I started drawing, writing, doing photo manips, doing paintings, doing anything. If that was the case, then everybody would just have to talk to the makers of this shit. That is not sustainable for anybody. Yeah. And then there's like no community. There's just like these little hierarchies, these little pillars to go visit. None of us are gods. Yeah. I don't care how much you like somebody. Take them off the fucking pedestal, and you could be surprised like how you could actually get to know somebody in a meaningful way. People you thought would never talk to you. Some people in here, I'm just like, I didn't think you'd want to talk to me, but that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that, broadly speaking, one thing that I always recommend is to like get to know people beyond just the thing that they're like creating, because I find that the longest lasting kind of friendships or connections that I've made in the community have, of course, started off with like, we like this thing, but it also expands into not just like how deep does this go for you, but also who are you outside of it. And I think that that's a piece that, at least for me in particular, has always felt particularly meaningful, because especially in a space where maybe we don't necessarily feel as comfortable sharing stuff about like our personal lives or what have you, getting to know someone else outside of just, the content they make or the things that they're into, it feels like, you're being let in on something like that is precious. And I think that, getting to connect with people in that way is a sign of trust, and it's also a way to actually build a longer lasting connection. And I've gone to do that a number of times, I think, in this community, and I'm always very grateful for that. And I think that has always been something that, to me at least, has made me feel more as part of a community instead of like being potentially an outsider.
Yeah, that's the thing about community. It's interactions on every level. If it really all had to do with you, deferring to the people that you thought were better than you, then yeah, that's not what's happening. Then you're doing like the whole like a hive and queen type of thing, and that's another fun thing that I know that people like. But seriously, since we don't work that way, it's not fun for us. Mm-hmm. It just isn't.
Yeah.
So like I guess one other thing to bring up, because, and this is not to put a downer on it, this is just kind of like to help temper people who really wonder like, how the fuck do I stop lurking or whatever. Remember that when you talk to certain people, creators, anybody, you might find out that they're either a piece of shit or that you just can't get along with them. It has nothing to do with how bad or good or bad you think they are. You're just like, I just don't know. It's a shame because I really like what they make.
Yeah.
Or I really like how they like navigate, or the little things that they put around. But that's just something that can happen. And it can happen a lot more than you think, but that doesn't mean that you need to stop doing it, and it doesn't mean that it is inherently something with you. Hey, even if you fuck up sometimes with somebody, it can be okay with somebody else. And sometimes you could come back later on, talk to somebody and be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember, like, yeah, how you been? And things just kind of change. You have more than one chance. First impressions are a little overrated. Like, they can be big, but you can come back from those things too. Like, you can give shit a shot.
I agree. There was one last thing I wanted to kind of chat about before we get to some of the live questions, and that was related to kind of facial expressions in transformations, because I think I think there's a common complaint to some degree, or refrain maybe, not necessarily a complaint, but I think people feel like there's like the same few expressions in transformation media. I'd say there's probably like 5 or so. It's like shocked, happy, distraught, ambivalent, or horny. And so I wanted to ask, like, do you feel like you fall into those buckets more often than not, or do you actively push to create different kinds of facial expressions outside of those, like maybe 5 or so?
I definitely try to do more than just those. Like, I got plenty of like the horny sensual thing in my work, but also sometimes I just want people to really like look like they're pushing through with like a certain emotion or something like that. I want to add some nuance. Wait, who else is complaining about this? Because I don't see the complaints about the facial expressions. I do. I complain about.
Oh no,
that.
I've had conversations with people before.
Really?
So that's
okay.
why I mentioned it.
So like, what have you heard? Just like that, flatly, or what?
I mean, pretty flatly. I think sometimes when it's come to like, like I'm looking for like a certain kind of transformation, or I'm looking for a certain kind of like reaction to it, and I'm not really like seeing it in the media that I'm looking for, because like, everyone's just always like happy or freaking out or horny, and that's not really what I'm looking for. I don't know, I've seen it a few times. Like, I've talked about it with people before, and it's a part of my reaction, at least sometimes, is like, well, yes, I as an artist might like to try to push outside of that, but also those are pretty like understandable reactions to going through a transformation in the first place anyways. And so I don't really necessarily see a problem with it. That being said, it is nice to push outside of those boundaries, but that comes with, whatever it is that the artist's intention is, or conversely, it depends on what they're being commissioned for, because sometimes that's just what you're being commissioned for. Like, if I'm commissioned for this is hot to me multiple times, well, that's the constraints I'm working within, right? And I feel like, I don't know, like, especially when I've been commissioned, it's like almost all of my commissions have fallen in those categories, and that's fine, because that's what someone wants to see. But I have heard people complain about it before.
Okay, yeah, wow, that really doesn't make it around to me. I'm usually, not usually, what I end up doing is I look at people's things, and then I also, because I check in every now and again. Sometimes I'll be like, tag this category, what's new? And a lot of it isn't for me, and then sometimes I'll notice that, like, man, why are the people doing this over and over again? And like, personally speaking, I do the same sort of things also because I am trying to get it just right. Like, I've done this thing before a lot, but today I want to do it a little better than the last time. and I can relate to people who do that kind of thing with art. I always remember this one artist on DA who all they did was make just plain straight to the front portraits of faces of characters. It's all they did. And I thought that was really interesting because it was also like a bunch of different kinds of faces, but it was just faces. And I was thinking, I think they look great. That just seems to be the thing they want to do.
Yeah.
However, like, there's something to be said about if you're doing a bunch of different scenarios with a bunch of different tones, but you have like just 3 different options. I think there's something to be said, something that's kind of left on the table.
Yeah.
And
It's limiting.
Yeah, it's limiting. And maybe they realize it. Maybe they can't put words to it. I really don't know. I can't say. I haven't talked to most of those people.
Yeah.
I know with some people they end up saying, yeah, I don't really like this, or I feel like this falls short. But, I got my little categories, but I really try to have some nuance because, so here's a fun thing, and ask artist friends if you got them. See if they do the thing where they make the face they're trying to draw.
Oh.
It actually, it's a thing. It's a thing, and I've been caught doing it where I'm just like, it's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing.
Well, then my next question is, like, when it comes to making those, like, facial expressions as part of, like, an art piece, how do you approach setting them up? Like, are you anchoring the piece with them, or do you, like, sketch out the rest of the transformation first, and then you're like, this is the expression I want to try and create?
Sometimes I have it in mind, but usually I like to start with the bodies and, like, things anyway. It's just a thing I adopted from one class, but it works for me. Sometimes I'll start from, like, a bunch of different places, but the face I usually have, like, this nebulous idea of, and sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. When it's clear, I will work at trying to get it just right.
Right.
But I don't always start with the face or even with an expression. At times, it really is just the matter of, I have this sort of body language I want to express, and then I think, this face would complement it very well.
Right.
If there even is room for a face sometimes.
True, yeah. Maybe there isn't going to be a face, and that's fine, too.
Maybe there isn't a face, or maybe there isn't anything that can, like, express because, like, the teeth are, like, pushing out behind, like, the lips and stuff like that. That's fun to do.
That is fun.
I like that.
I will say I'm a little bit envious in the sense of, I think for every single, like, photo minute I've done, I have to pick the expression first because it is the hardest thing to change later when I'm actually doing the photo minute. So, like, I'm, like, locked into, at the very least, if anything else, I am locked into the expression to some degree. Because, like, you can change it to some degree later. I'm not saying you can't, but, like, especially when you're taking the stock, that is, like, the one thing you almost have to, like, 100% nail.
So here's a fun thought. Say I'm over and you're like, I have this idea and I really want to get it done. Give me a few minutes. But then you need a little help. So I just give you, like, a hard enough punch in the gut. And you're like,
I mean, that would be helpful in certain situations.
Are you ready?
Not
Bad.
God.
Not gonna, like, Houdini you and, like,
Yeah. The broken rib really made this one.
Wow, it looks so genuine.
Yeah, it was.
It was. I can help everybody.
Oh, God. No,
it's
but,
like this.
No, it is, and I think, like, at least because of that, like, how that's integrated in my art process, I've always thought about that in particular because when if I'm taking, like, multiple stock for, like, whatever picture it is that I want to make, I will take multiple options because I will look at it and be like, everything's pretty good. Why does my face look like that? I have to do this again. God fucking damn it. So
remember, you're an actor.
I am an actor. It's true.
You can do it.
I can always do it.
Again and again.
And again and again and again.
Again and again and again.
Yeah.
That's a Simpsons joke.
Is it?
Yes.
Beautiful.
You'll see that episode someday.
I'm sure I will.
It's a good one. It's the one where they filmed the movie. Yeah, the Radioactive End movie.
Incredible. I'll have to see it.
We did it 70 times, but we did it. But we have to do it again from different angles, and again and again, and again and again and again.
Incredible. Would you say there is a favorite facial expression in a piece that you've done?
Oh, like, you want me to just, like, pick a piece or what, or just, like, general?
You can pick one, or, like, in general. It's an open question. You can also ignore the question if you want.
I just want it to be, like, breathy. It's like the relief through the pain kind of thing. You know, you're not feeling great, but there's that little moment where you're just like, oh, fuck, finally. And your face is scrunched up in just a certain way where you don't really think that they're like okay.
Yeah.
But like, that was worth it, wasn't it? That kind of thing. It's the one thing that I try to come back to over and over again, which makes me very boring.
I don't think it makes you boring.
Trust me, I've been like, that's the other thing that kind of made me feel like an outsider. Is like I'm making my stuff, and then people are asking me things like, "Is there a story? What's happening? What's she turning into?" I hate getting asked that question when I just want to do something that just seems interesting to me. What's the story? What's this? What's that? They want context, and if I can't fucking spoon feed it to them, they don't give a fuck. Which is funny because then nobody wants to read anyway.
Yeah.
What do you want? You want a movie?
No, I want a very detailed 250-page sequence that I can view in VR from multiple different angles so that I can get every inch of the transformation.
VR.
Do it for free.
That's right.
For me specifically.
Yeah. Sure, dude. It's my new life. I'll be liked someday, I swear. They'll like me for this.
It was funny because I wrote this question and then I was like, wait, do I have a favorite one? I don't know. Let me look at my gallery. I think probably there was a lioness TGTF I did one time that I was actually very happy with from like the facial perspective, because I don't know why it took me a long time to like figure out feline snouts, and like I love feline snouts obviously as a cat, but it took me a while to get them like kind of the way that I wanted to. And then there was the added layer of, okay, so you've got the anatomy down, now how do you actually make an expression work? And so I think that took me a hot minute to kind of like figure out as like part of my artwork, and that was I think the first time that I genuinely felt very happy with it. So
okay, I think you do the surprise thing pretty well. I never look at it and think like, oh yeah, your eyes are just bugged out, because that's what you think surprise is. It's just it's a hard thing to manage, especially when you got to be the actual focus.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, when you got to like pull it a bunch of different ways and everything like that, yeah, suddenly you add a layer to it. So you got to figure it out. But good that you found that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's always interesting to try and like, I feel like, especially with a lot of photo manip stuff, it's just like, I'm just fucking doing it live because I don't have a lot of like,
well, that's inspiration. That's another reason that I encourage most people to just try and do things, because you don't wait for inspiration, but follow the whims. The whims come much more easily than inspiration. Don't wait for inspiration. That shit is extremely rare. It's precious, but extremely rare. That's why it's precious. So follow your little whims. You can be happy sometimes with that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. You just follow that sort of thing. I mean, I've had a lot of fun just making stuff out of pocket. Mm-hmm. Remember there was this one practice that I did with like hand to paw. That really got to people. Like, and it was so quick, but I'm like, I'm happy with this. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whims are good.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, we have some time for some questions from the audience, or airing grievances with us. That's fine too. Yeah, I see a hand over there actually.
Air your grievance in the form of a question.
Sitting on this one, since we were talking about like transformations in non-TF community media, I'm going to take my mask off for this to make sure you can hear me correctly. No one in the TF community is fucking drawing shit of Limbus Company. You would have like an entire fucking mechanic where like you can equip equipment that comes from different monsters, and if their sanity goes too low, they turn into the monster and use the attack for the equipment.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, neither have I.
It's like an alternate design that they turn into, and like no one fucking draws like sequences to those alternate designs, or like other characters even like from more popular media doing that mechanic or anything like that. So like,
so the people need to know about Limbus Company, which allows you to pick up items, and sometimes
it's an alternate outfit for the attack. Like it's for different like monsters that you can equip, and usually it's an outfit change. But if their sanity drops too low, they'll like turn into a monster and use the attack at random and hit your allies.
Okay,
that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah,
I like that.
Like alternate outfits that if you don't have enough sanity, you're gonna attack differently. I like that. I do like that. I've never heard of that property before, so now I'm gonna have to go do my research.
Games that happened before it, but they don't have as much transformation stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
fine.
Okay.
Limbus Company.
Limbus Company. Okay.
Yeah, I
Well,
like
there
that.
you go. I do like that concept,
Yeah,
honestly.
that's-
It reminds me of Beacon a little bit.
Beacon is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know what the sad thing about Beacon is, though? You can't buy it on Steam anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't uninstall it because that's it. I don't know where else you can find the game except like maybe pirate it or like find it in some internet
Yeah.
hole. But that game had to do with somebody who had crash landed on an alien planet, and you find out that you're just a clone, and the clones of you are trying to get off the planet because it's kind of like a continuous memory sort of thing, and you find logs of the old you, but every single time you remake yourself, you get DNA from the things that you kill, but that includes also machines. And you get reconstructed in a bunch of weird different ways trying to get off the planet. But the thing I didn't expect is that every single time you change, it's written out and expressed, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Especially with like the machine things and how it like warps your thinking and stuff like that, or how much it hurts, or how strange it feels, or what it's doing. Beacon is great. So Limbus Company I'm going to look into. But I understand the feeling of why isn't anybody doing this? And really it's just because it's not fun enough, or maybe it doesn't have the thing that they're looking for. It's why I've said like a bunch of times that when people are making things, it's because there's just like this collective consciousness about it. And if it's not like appealing in some sort of way, they're not going to be interested.
Yeah.
I think in this case, it's more of just an obscurity thing. It's not a very well.
It may be that too. There's
Yeah.
so much stuff, and hey, if you think otherwise, I think you need to reconsider. There's actually a lot of really good shit out now, and even more good shit coming out soon.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up? You can't. Remember we were talking
about that yesterday.
Yeah,
last week. You know what I mean.
The fire hose is shit. There's a lot of stuff.
there's
Like
a lot of shit.
But there's so much good stuff to like pour your time into. So like,
we as
holy
people
shit.
do not have enough capacity to consume
But yes,
it all.
Limbus Company, look into it. Look into
Yeah.
a bunch of things. Look into old shit. Look into
Yeah.
new shit.
I should have mentioned as a housekeeping, we have a mic here for the actual recording, so if you're willing, we'll hand it to you so you can ask your question in it. Do we have other questions?
While we're on the topic of running back to previous conversations on the recording already, talking about people maybe not knowing how best to interact with artists and such, how much of it do you think might also be from not just the TF community, but the furry community in general is obviously a much more queer, a lot more out there personality type, people who just maybe didn't really have that sort of experience perhaps as a kid? And yes, I'm kind of full self-reporting here a little bit, but how much of it would you say falls into like a sort of issue where it's like people are finally finding this community and are like, oh, I'm, amongst people who maybe not have shared similar traumas perhaps, but are like, have dealt with very similar themes of like social outcast, social ostracization, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, where they're, this is the first time they're in a community and as such are like, oh, I can talk about these things that have been weighing on my mind for years, if not decades at this point, and maybe aren't quite aware that that's not the easiest way to go about doing things like that.
I think that is definitely a good point too. I mean, I think it's a fair statement to say that with furry, TF, all those kinds of things, we have a high proportion of neurospicy folks, myself included. And I think that, that definitely can add to like a level of complexity in terms of interacting with other people. And like you said, especially like if you've had to deal with, like that sort of ostracization already, like from other external sources, traumas and such. So I definitely think that contributes. And I think the thing I will say is, I always see that as a baseline of like, this is an obstacle that people may have to overcome, because I know I've had to deal with it too. But I don't see it as like this like impenetrable barrier. And I just hope people like are reminded of that in the sense of like, you might not be starting from the same, starting line as other folks, but it is possible to break through that and at least connect with people who maybe are on your same wavelength, are the same brand of neurospicy, whatever it might be. I don't want that to just be like, oh, this is the impermeable barrier and there's nothing to be done, because I think there are ways to get through it or around it or over it or dig under it, et cetera, however much more you want to stretch this analogy. But I definitely do acknowledge that is, I think, a barrier as well. And I just hope that people don't get too discouraged when maybe their first few times they're trying to like figure shit out, like they strike out. Like Libra said earlier too, like there will always be multiple opportunities. There is always going to be a chance to reintroduce yourself in some fashion. So maybe it's going to take some on-the-job experience to figure out what is the best way to actually socialize with people. I would just hope that some of the advice maybe is also taken as well.
I'm also going to say that take it how you will, but I felt like the normal guy for a really long time coming into this, and I had to learn to like make myself familiar and adapt to like the queer spaces and stuff like that. Because that's another thing that made me feel like I didn't belong. It's just like, man, there's a lot of people who are like different sexualities and orientations and everything like that. I'm not like that. That's a big part of the identity here, especially with the major overlap that furry has. Like, I do want to talk to people, but this is upfront, and I have to learn to navigate it. The point of me saying any of that is there are people who may want to talk to others that aren't in their normal thing, and they're perfectly willing to actually learn, acclimate themselves, all that kind of stuff, who are, considered essentially normal, and they're going to put some effort into it. Give people a little bit of credit here and there. I can come off as extremely cynical, I know that, but if I don't keep that under control, I'll be a miserable piece of shit. That being said, there are plenty of people who are outside of this space who maybe they get curious, and maybe you may feel like you'll have to navigate those normies and stuff, but it's okay, because there's actually plenty of really good people who otherwise you feel are like normal, boring, but they're going to give this a shot.
Do you think there's a correlation between the amount of similar faces put in TFs and the amount of situations put into the TFE? Because I thought the reason why there's because there's like the 4 same expressions in the TF art, I assume that because there are 4 distinct situations or emotions that the TFE is attending, or maybe there's a lack of nuance between, for example, surprise. There are many expressions of surprise, or there's many situations of being surprised. For example, surprisingly angry, surprisingly bored, or surprisingly angry. Do you think that there is a correlation between samey expressions and samey situations?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think there's definitely something to be said about specific situations coming up a lot. I don't think they're necessarily always correlated to the same sorts of expressions coming up, but there definitely is a lot of overlap. I think in particular, at least in terms of situations, usually there's a fairly unique spin on them, mainly because either it's someone who's commissioning an idea, so it's specific to like them and what sort of situation they would want to be transforming in. It may be specific to, the artist is trying to do different kinds of spins on the things they're into. I think when it comes to like actual sameness, you can probably point to like, there's only a certain number of ways you can interact with certain triggers. There's only a certain number of ways you can perhaps reinterpret some of the TF myths so that we like to fall back upon. Those are probably samey to some degree, but I don't necessarily think that the expressions in those situations are always going to like line up 100%, because there is a personal element to how like the person who's being commissioned, or the person who's doing the commissioning, or the person who's just an artist doing a situation for themselves is going to interpret that.
I would argue there's some causation, because based on what I said earlier, which is there's just the repeats of things, because that's what a lot of people in this fandom like expect, and not just expect, but what they want to see. It'll be revisited over and over. So it's like some artists that I've talked to are just like, oh yeah, in a TF you gotta have whatever it is that they really like. And I'm just like, well, okay, I guess it's gonna happen over and over again. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
There's plenty of nuance, but some people just want to keep making that shit, or maybe they just don't think to. Again, that's why I like people who come from the outside of this. Is like, what if this, but that, and I'm just like, oh, that's really cool. I think there was somebody who like gave me this idea of like, what do you do like fruit transformations, but like it's the sort of thing where like, I don't know, it's like you peel back like if you would peel back the skin or something like that. I don't know. It was interesting things with like how it would interact with the body and everything, and like come out with a sort of like a mixed being sort of thing. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but yeah, it's just like one of the points where there's going to be the expectation, and sometimes like the artist just is either thinking that's what people are going to like, or what people are, or what they just want to see over and over again. I mean, even you said it in like a previous episode about threading the needle, where you're keeping things in line, and that is going to make you fall into things that you've seen before, or that maybe a bunch of other people have done before, because you're taking into account what other people expect. Yeah. And so, yes, there's going to be kind of like a limitation in that sort of thing. So I guess, again, content for your audience, just make shit you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a through line between me and making art with big dicks, and that seems to be a through line. So. Well,
you like it, but
I do.
You can be creative with the bigness
and
the dickness and the kind of dickness and the shapeness of the dickness.
I do try.
What, are you doing it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, keep doing it. See, this guy knows what he likes.
Do we have some more questions, comments, concerns? Shade?
Threats to me.
Threats?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I can just start threatening you. I don't have any grievances, but I can just start threatening you.
That's okay, I'm good, but I appreciate the gumption, so.
Fine by me. Let's do it.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Hi, I was a guest on last week's episode where there was a listener question for the two hosts here about what it would be like to TF into each other. Yes. And you did talk about it, and I did commit on the episode to showing up here to insist that the two of you experienced that by swapping shirts. You thought I'd forget, didn't you?
I forgot. Oh my god.
Hey, fuck you, you know that?
We're waiting.
I mean...
Take it off!
Take it off!
Take it off!
I think you got it now.
Take it off! Take it off!
There you go. There you go.
Embrace the saints!
Wait, did I put it on backwards? Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did. There's a big fucking picture on the front, man.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Listen, I just, for a moment, I forgot, okay? There you go. There you go. There you go. Okay. Yeah, there you go. I'm so glad you remembered that now.
This is going to make such great radio.
I know. Truly, everyone listening at home is like, wow, the visuals are stunning here. So, you know.
Do you want it back?
You can keep it for now. Do we have any other questions? Now that we've fully, swapped bodies and such.
I repeat, fuck you.
Come on, you gotta ask us a body swapped question now. Someone. Okay, yeah, there we go.
I'm sorry, I lied. It's not a body swap question.
Okay, go ahead.
Have either of you watched Severance?
No.
Oh, no!
I've been told to watch it.
Okay. That kind of makes the question difficult.
Okay, we still try.
I was thinking about the discussion about TF media created by non-TF people, and Severance is a kind of an on-the-line example. Has anyone here seen Severance? Please tell me at least one person has.
There's at least 2 hands.
Thank God. It's kind of like the base concept of the show is that there's a group of people that have separated their work life and their personal life to the point where their work life knows nothing about their personal life and vice versa. And I found it kind of a interesting thing where it's almost like, or maybe is TF. It has a lot of like that. It's kind of like borderline where, in TF we have reality shift and personality change and loss of self. And it's kind of, it has all of those elements, but with the person's physical body not changing. And they split and come back together. And it's like a really interesting kind of, like I said, it kind of straddles that line of a piece of TF media made by, from what we know, not TF enjoyer.
Okay, so then what's the question?
I just wanted to know what you thought about it, but...
What do you think?
I can opine on it. Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so would I consider that TF? Yes. I mean, we've argued that changing clothes on this podcast is TF. So, like, I have a pretty expansive view of it, enclothed cognition. But to answer your question specifically, I mean, I think the concept is fascinating. I have been told many times that I should watch it, and this is just further reasoning that I should. I think when it comes to that sort of siloing, one of the things I'd actually relate it to is how a lot of us actually approach interacting with the transformation community, because I think for a lot of people there is, this is myself online and this is myself in public, or be it at a job or whatever, and the two shall never meet. I think a lot of people have talked in the past, and like you know, even to me to some degree, about how like you want to keep those things separate. You don't want to necessarily have that overlap because you don't want people to know about it because you think it's weird, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, you have this whole like two things, nothing is overlapping. It's interesting because in the long term, that I don't really think that works. Like long term, there will be a time where the reckoning comes and the wall comes down, and it's always better to be the one to bring that wall down yourself. That's how I very much approached it. Obviously, there's still things that, like, look, I'm not going to go into my workplace and wear a tail as much as I love wearing my tails. That's not something that I would do. But that doesn't mean that, you know, outside of like that specific context, in other areas of my personal life, I can be open about, you know, being a furry, liking transformation, all that stuff. I think that's a healthy thing to do. I don't think it's healthy to just like put it in a box and shove that box down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench and be like, I will go visit that with my little diver every so often, then I come up and we don't talk about it. I don't think that's healthy long term. And I think also, especially if it's something that like is really like meaningful to you, like you should allow it to have air to breathe. It shouldn't be at the bottom of the ocean.
I'm thinking of Dollhouse. I think Dollhouse had the same concept or something, didn't it? People would rent their bodies out to just do work, and in the meantime, you're just kind of. Oh wait, I think it was like a little bit more like they just kind of like turn off the personality or something. So it's still technically in there, but they're not aware. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people wish they could do for work in a lot of situations. That's what dissociation is. But, you know, there's that thing taken to its logical extreme if you want to do it to what you want. Unfortunately, I think it's a real terrible idea, and I'm sure that a lot of these shows end up doing that sort of theme ultimately because there's so many problems that can come up. It's usually a pretty cool idea. I'm not sure what Severance would bring to it, but then again, I never really watched it. I haven't watched any of those shows, and like
it's on my list to watch. At least I've heard good things.
I mean, you tell me how it is.
Yeah,
I think it's always a great thing to explore, though. It's like wait a minute. You know, like the whole switching roles thing is just like a huge part of it. And I guess that's why it's easy for you to put it in the bucket.
Oh, yeah.
I think it shares themes. It doesn't feel like it is because you're not really, well, yes and no. Yeah, see, it's real nebulous. What a thought experiment, right? You have turned your body into a tool for a certain thing. And that is what you're doing, even though you're not changing the body itself, but you're changing it another way. And again, it's like the whole conceptual thing.
Yeah. Sounds like capitalism.
Sounds like, yeah, it turns you into, man,
a cog in the machine.
A cog in the machine, a pig.
Where's my cog
this,
TF, man? Like,
a
God.
mule, just all this shit, yeah. But anything other than something respectable.
You mentioned already, we've talked about TF as punishment. You're now taking a look at Severance and the personality changes in people's bodies being used for things. TF as a means of control is another way of where that can go. It reminds me of the book The Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. If you haven't read it, please do so, where there is something, it's not a big in terms of TF straight up, as most people here would probably appreciate it, but it does occur a little bit in there. And it's part of how something that what people want is being used to control them in a way that this is something that will be good, but now it's being used to enslave people. And TF as a control tool is just something that you see it a little bit here and there, but I just thought it was an interesting subject that I know we're about out of time, but something to consider.
Yes. So.
Definitely read the Zelazny book so you can find out the pit hits the shan.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that it's good to bring up that particular thing because I've talked with my friend Pessimist a lot, and she is one of the people who likes to bring a BDSM sort of vibe to transformation. I'm like, okay, I see exactly how that can work. And then, of course, I explain like how these other things could also be included because I'm not about the BDSM stuff. However, it is more easy to see in a lot of other situations. You are now my loyal steed. You are my guard dog. You are this. You are whatever. There's the evil genie logic where you get what you want, but it's not. You don't know that you don't want it until it happens. All that other kind of stuff. But you see, it's a good thought experiment to actually test people's. I guess like you could test their morals with it. You could test what they think is actually worthwhile, what they're willing to sacrifice and stuff like that. Read Berserk, sacrifice again. It's something that I see is I don't want to say misused, but I'm just so fucking tired of seeing it because it really comes off as like little personal power trips over other people. And though I can understand that, there is sometimes the expression that the cruelty is kind of the point just because you think somebody or a certain kind of people deserve it. And like, hey, you're expressing yourself, but I strongly go against some things that some people seem to express, which is why I've pissed some people off, and I destroyed one TF chat because I said this is fucked up that this is happening, and somebody took it personally, and then a bunch of people left, and I was just like, yeah, I just wanted to say that, but people can't really handle that. I think the punishment thing is something that I think people would do well to be more self-aware about, or at least be ready to discuss with people. If you're going to do it and you're going to show it and you want reactions from people, and if you give people the opportunity to talk about it, be ready. I know I have to be ready because the stuff that I make, again, can be easily misrepresented, and especially when I make it for myself, and if people are going to ask me certain questions, I'm going to wait to see if they're attacking me or if they really just don't like what they see. I mean, hell, I had a discussion last night about why I don't like Star Wars. And that was a good discussion, but that's because they knew that I wasn't being like, yeah, people who like Star Wars are brain dead troglodytes, and I think that they should be, it's not what it is most of the time.
If I can give a slightly different perspective on TFS control. So in the context of some BDSM spaces, I am a dom. And so I do find a lot of interesting dynamics that can be put in play there. That being said, I think, for me at least, the kinds of like TF as control, it really only hits properly when there is the like, to be honest, like if the other person is giving consent for it, then it's super cool. If it's not, I'm kind of like, because I think there is a little bit to be said about like the exploring of like the morality of that. But
I think the important thing to consider is that, again, it's control, so you're applying your will on other people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like oh, you didn't know you were this thing and now it's happening.
No,
Whoops,
no, it's the direct infliction. Yes,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting when it comes up in stories. I think there's a lot of interesting things that can be explored about it, and in particular, I would say the most interesting part of TFS control is not what the person is becoming necessarily, but it's about how each of the people in the scenario are both reacting to it and how that potentially furthers their character arcs. When we're talking about a good story, all of these things should be in service of an end goal. If it's TF porn, maybe the end goal is getting you off. But if for many stories, I would think it is, the end goal is I'm telling an interesting story, I'm telling a story with interesting characters, and they are going on some sort of a journey that is going to tell the reader something by the end of it. And I think that when it comes to TFS control, it is best used in those situations. I have read plenty of stories that fall into that lens, and when it is done well, it is chef's kiss. So that would be like my overall thoughts on it.
Okay, cool.
More of a comment, like, you care about storytelling. Like, you're the right crowd to pitch my favorite game to.
The
Yeah. like the storytelling doesn't have much to do with the transformation part, but the storytelling is good, and there's like transformations I would consider good, so like it feels like the right audience, you know?
Absolutely.
Also, the actual reason I wanted to come up here was like that came to mind while I was thinking about the next thing I was going to say, which is you lapsed into a perfect critical impression when you were like doing the like people who don't like Star Wars joke.
I messed with that.
Not that was recognized.
For a little while, and the people out here, they sometimes get really sweaty, but I just wanted to understand, and I spread my butthole here and there so people would,
exactly.
give me a chance to exist. But it looks like I'm being, I can't take it anymore. I just wanted to talk about something today. See you.
Incredible. Well, that was all the time we had today, but I guess before we sign off, did you want to do your best impression of me since we did the shirt swapping thing?
Oh, shit. Well, I'm trying to think, because there's a way to do it where you're just being mean, and that's not what I want to do.
I wouldn't be offended if you did. For the
No, but why would I try? All right. So, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. They've been so kind to us. I'm so pleased to be here with my illustrious co-host, Zil. And, I mean, today is going to be a great day. I think that it's a great time for TF and for TF lovers. And I can't wait to get this episode started. How are you doing today, Libra?
Okay, hold on. Fuck. I'm not going to do as good a job. You're too good at this.
You're an actor. You can do it.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's good to be here. Read Berserk. And, I got some people in here that maybe we're going to be hearing from later, and maybe you'll have something interesting to say, but you're going to listen to me at least for the next 90 minutes, and it'll be good.
Yeah. You see, he's a very friendly guy. I swear that I talked to him for more than just this podcast. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I put up with this guy, but he's okay.
Yeah. Well, so to get started on our first topic.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Was that enough for you?
Yes, it was. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you coming. Cheers.
Have a great time.
All the best. Have a good rest of your con.
See you in the darkness.
Yeah, stay TFE.